When the calls become fewer, when opportunities close without explanation, when unfamiliar surroundings make belonging feel distant, and when the future no longer tells you what comes next, silence can feel like a verdict. The room grows quiet, and your mind begins to speak for it. Nothing is happening. Nobody sees me. Perhaps I have been forgotten. But silence did not say that. Fear said it. The central conflict is not only the quiet around you, it is the meaning you assign to the quiet within you. If you interpret reduced attention as reduced worth, you will turn waiting into rejection. If you interpret invisibility as inactivity, you will assume that what cannot be seen cannot be significant. Yet some of the most important work in a human life begins when public confirmation ends. This does not mean loneliness is painless. It does not mean every withdrawal is healthy or every closed opportunity is secretly desirable. The audience material behind this message repeatedly returns to fear, waiting, worry, stress, anxiety, burden, and the longing for peace. Those pressures are real, but their recurrence does not prove that quiet produces growth. Quiet creates an environment. Your response determines what that environment becomes. Abandonment leaves you without meaningful direction. Purposeful solitude removes enough noise for direction to be examined. One says you have been discarded. The other asks, what can now be discovered? One reduces you to what is absent. The other confronts you with what must be built. So do not rush to pronounce judgment over a chapter that has not yet revealed its assignment. Silence is not proof that your life has stopped. It may be the room in which your next capacity is being built, the capacity to know who you are without applause, to refine vision without pressure, to practice discipline without supervision, and to carry responsibility without being consumed by it. This season must not become an excuse to disappear. It must become an invitation to examine. What should you build when relationships, recognition, and opportunity become quiet? Build a stable identity. Build refined vision. Build strengthened discipline. Build readiness for responsibility. But first, you must learn the distinction that governs everything that follows. Isolation and solitude may both feel lonely, but they do not produce the same person. The issue is not merely that you are alone. The issue is what your aloneness is producing. Two people can inhabit the same quiet and emerge as different people. One becomes trapped inside the pain. The other becomes trained through honest attention. The external condition may look identical, but the inward direction is not. That is the distinction you must learn. Loneliness can hurt. Separation can arrive without permission. Some distance is imposed by loss, conflict, rejection, or circumstances you did not choose. Do not call every painful separation purposeful. Pain does not become preparation merely because it happens in private. Quiet has constructive value only when it is handled with intention, truth, connection, and responsibility. Isolation is a closing movement. It closes you to correction because correction feels threatening. It closes you to support because support requires honesty. It closes you to responsibility because injury becomes the explanation for every neglected duty. It even closes you to self-examination because isolation does not merely hide you from others, it can hide you from yourself. Isolation circles around the wound. It studies who caused it, rehearses what was lost, and interprets every new relationship through an old injury. Its attention is active, but its activity produces no construction. It consumes energy without creating capacity. Purposeful solitude moves differently. It is bounded quiet with a constructive aim. You listen without pretending. You assess without condemning yourself. You grieve what must be grieved, heal what can be healed, practice what must be strengthened, and prepare for an honest return. Solitude does not deny pain. It refuses to make pain its permanent address. That is why receiving help does not violate solitude. Maintaining safe relationships does not weaken it. Speaking truthfully to someone trustworthy does not cancel the work of quiet. These actions protect solitude from becoming concealment. Healthy quiet may reduce noise, but it does not reject truth. It may limit access, but it does not abandon accountability. It may create distance for reflection, but it does not cultivate hostility toward relationship. So examine the direction of your aloneness. Ask yourself, am I becoming clearer or more confused? More responsible or more avoidant? More honest or more defensive? More capable of healthy relationship or more hostile to it? Am I using this time to build or am I using it to disappear? Purpose is the test. The goal of solitude is not permanent withdrawal. The goal is preparation for return. To return without losing conviction. To participate without begging for identity. To serve without becoming dependent on approval. If your quiet is making you less truthful, less responsible, and less reachable, seek support. That is not failure. That is wisdom interrupting isolation. Once you can name the kind of quiet you are inhabiting, a deeper question appears. When familiar approval is removed and old roles no longer speak for you, who remains? What remains is not immediately obvious, because much of identity is learned through reflection. A title tells you how to enter a room. A relationship tells you where you belong. Familiar surroundings confirm that you are recognized. Invitations assure you that your presence matters. Then the title ends, the relationship changes, the move rearranges belonging, or invitations stop arriving and the mirrors that once reflected you go dark. That darkness can feel like disappearance. Not because you have ceased to exist, but because you have practiced seeing yourself through other people's responses. When attention came, you felt valuable. When your contribution was requested, you felt significant. When someone needed you, you felt secure. Recognition became reassurance, reassurance became dependence, and dependence quietly began answering the question of identity. But a role is something you perform. It is not the total person performing it. Attention is something you receive. It is not the source of your worth. Usefulness describes what you can provide. It does not define who you are. Applause reports a response from others. Conviction governs your response when others are silent. That is why quiet can feel so severe. It removes borrowed introductions. It asks you to stand without the language that once made you impressive, necessary, accepted, or familiar. If recognition created your identity, silence will erase it. But if conviction anchors your identity, silence will reveal it. One identity requires constant confirmation. The other can withstand examination. So conduct an identity audit. What do you believe about yourself when nobody confirms it? What remains when your former role cannot introduce you? Which parts of your confidence collapse when attention moves elsewhere? Are you grieving a genuine loss or concluding that the loss has made you less human? Do you know yourself, or do you only know the version of yourself that received a favorable response? Do not treat these questions as humiliation. Treat them as mercy. Quiet reveals where validation has been carrying weight it was never designed to carry. The audience interest signaled around E6, where solitude, changing seasons, mindset, identity, and releasing limiting patterns resonated together, does not prove these claims. It simply shows that these concerns often travel together in the listener's experience. Now, name what endures. Name the values you will practice whether they are celebrated or ignored. Name the responsibilities that remain yours even when nobody checks on you. Name the abilities still under development, including those not yet visible enough to attract opportunity. Name the convictions you refuse to exchange for acceptance. Be truthful, not theatrical. Stable identity is not inflated self-description. It is examined agreement between what you profess, what you practice, and what you are prepared to carry. When invisibility awakens the old fear, replace its language. Do not say, I am nobody because I am unseen. Say, my visibility has changed. My responsibility to become has not. Repeat it until reduced attention no longer becomes reduced identity. You are not preserving a former label. You are learning to recognize the person beneath it. And once the audience no longer decides who you are, another truth becomes audible. Your private patterns are always shaping who you are becoming. Quiet has loosened the labels. Now it can reveal the habits beneath them. Private reality is often quieter than public identity. Once activity slows, you begin to hear what busyness kept interrupting. Noise can entertain pain. A crowded schedule can postpone grief. Constant company can keep honest questions from becoming audible. Then quiet arrives, and what was delayed asks to be acknowledged. Do not confuse acknowledgement with blame. You may not be responsible for the rejection, the transition, the loss, or the disruption that brought you here. What happened to you and what you do with what happened are different questions. You do not have to accept guilt that is not yours, but you must accept stewardship of your response. Innocence concerning the event does not remove responsibility for your healing, your choices, and your next action. So take an inventory, not to accuse yourself, but to understand what has been governing you. Begin with recurring thoughts. Which conclusions return whenever you feel uncertain? Then examine emotional triggers. What circumstance produces a reaction greater than the moment seems to require? Examine private habits. What do you reach for when discomfort appears and no one is present to interrupt you? Finally, examine avoided responsibilities. Which necessary conversation, decision, apology, boundary, or task have you repeatedly delayed? An empty room does not create every crack in the wall. It reveals what crowded furniture concealed. In the same way, removal may expose fear, resentment, undisciplined desire, unfinished grief, or an old belief about your worth. Quiet does not necessarily create what hurts. Often it removes what kept you from seeing it. Ask precisely, what am I repeatedly avoiding? What story do I tell when I feel unwanted? What unfinished grief needs honest space? What pattern grows when nobody is watching? General questions produce vague remorse. Precise questions make responsible action possible. But guard the inventory from becoming rumination. Reflection faces the truth and asks, what is the next faithful action? Rumination rehearses the injury, repeats the accusation, and returns you to the same place without movement. Reflection may lead you to grieve, confess, repair, establish a boundary, change a habit, or seek counsel. Rumination merely keeps pain active while calling repetition insight. And if this examination reveals danger, severe impairment, or a burden that should not be carried alone, reach toward appropriate support. Speak to someone trustworthy and qualified for the need before secrecy turns suffering into confinement. Purposeful solitude remains connected to truth, help, and eventual return. What you discover is not a sentence against you. It is an assignment before you. Name one response to what has been revealed and begin it. Self-knowledge becomes constructive only when observation becomes stewardship. Once the concealed clutter is addressed, you can finally ask a forward question. What direction becomes visible now that distraction no longer controls the room? Once you have named what must be healed or corrected, turn your attention toward what must be served and built. Quiet is not only a place for examining yesterday. Properly governed, it is also a place for recognizing tomorrow's responsibility. Vision is not fantasy. Fantasy wants the future without welcoming the formation that future requires. It admires the outcome, but resists the education, sacrifice, correction, and patience necessary to approach it. Vision identifies a meaningful future and accepts responsibility for moving toward it. Fantasy asks, how will this make me feel? Vision asks, what must I become capable of doing? Comparison confuses that question. When you continually measure your life against another person's progress, their timing begins to feel like an emergency in your life. Their movement becomes your pressure. Their opportunity becomes your deadline. Soon you are pursuing speed instead of significance, visibility instead of suitability, and a life that looks successful from a distance but does not belong to your convictions. Motion is not direction. An opportunity is not automatically an assignment. Being available does not mean being suitable. You can be busy and still be misaligned. You can accept every opening and neglect the responsibility that deserves your preparation. Activity can exhaust you while giving you the illusion that you are advancing. That is why purposeful solitude matters. Solitude does not manufacture the landscape before you, but it can adjust the lens through which you examine it. It may not reveal the farthest horizon, yet it can bring the next faithful distance into focus. Clarity often arrives progressively, enough to choose, enough to prepare, enough to move. Apply a vision filter. Ask, what problem am I prepared to serve? What responsibility keeps returning even when attention and excitement disappear? What must I learn to serve it well? What must I stop pursuing because it consumes energy without strengthening the assignment? These questions separate genuine direction from borrowed urgency. They move you from vague longing to defined responsibility. Do not demand the entire map before taking one honest step. Complete visibility is not the requirement for preparation. Sufficient clarity is. You need enough light to stop training for the wrong life. Enough direction to identify the capacity your next responsibility demands, and enough courage to begin developing it now. Then test what you see against the inventory you have already taken. Authentic direction should not require you to deny grief, exaggerate ability, recover former applause, or pretend that unfinished work has disappeared. A vision built upon avoidance will eventually reproduce the disorder you refuse to address. True direction can acknowledge where you are without imprisoning you there. It tells the truth about present capacity while calling that capacity to grow. Now write one sentence. In this season, I believe my assignment is to serve by developing and faithfully doing. Keep it provisional. This is not a permanent label or a prediction of every future detail. It is a responsible statement of present direction, open to correction as insight matures. But once vision becomes clearer, it makes a demand. You cannot keep admiring what you refuse to prepare for. The next question is no longer merely, what can I see? It is, are my private routines making me capable of carrying it? Vision identifies the responsibility. Discipline builds the person who can meet it. Clarified identity chooses a direction. Clarified direction selects a discipline. Repeated discipline develops capacity. This is how insight becomes preparation. You decide what matters, identify what it requires, and practice what the requirement demands. Without that movement, vision remains an admired idea, emotionally powerful, verbally impressive, and practically unsupported. You can be inspired by an assignment without being trained for it. Inspiration awakens desire. Training reorganizes behavior. Inspiration says, I would love to serve at that level. Training asks, what must become consistent before I can serve there responsibly? The feeling may arrive in a moment. Capacity does not. Capacity is developed through repetition, correction, patience, and work that often receives no immediate response. Roots expand before branches bear anything visible. Rehearsal develops precision before the public moment tests it. A foundation is measured by what it can support, long before anyone admires what rises above it. In the same way, private discipline develops strength before responsibility exposes whether that strength is real. This development is rarely dramatic. Keep the schedule you have established. Study what your present direction requires. Create when nobody is requesting the work. Exercise judgment in small decisions. Complete the commitments that appear too ordinary to matter. Manage the resources already entrusted to you. Maintain the environment you presently occupy. These practices do not look like a rival, but they train attention, order, endurance, and stewardship. Quiet seasons carry a particular temptation because nobody is watching. Inconsistency can disguise itself as waiting. You say you are being patient, but you have stopped practicing. You say the right opportunity has not arrived, but you are neglecting what is already available. Waiting becomes passive when it asks the future to produce what present discipline refuses to develop. Routine is not a guarantee that a particular door will open, a desired position will appear, or your preferred outcome will occur. Discipline does not control the future. It governs your participation in the present. It is evidence that you believe the responsibility you have identified deserves preparation now. The audience interest represented by E10 shows the relevance of resilience and character under trouble. It does not prove that difficulty automatically produces either one. Trouble can reveal character, but only a disciplined response can strengthen it. Pressure is not training by itself. What you repeatedly practice under pressure is what forms you. So apply a disciplined test. What can I practice repeatedly with the time, tools, and responsibilities currently available? Do not begin with what is missing. Begin with what is within reach. Choose a practice small enough to repeat, clear enough to measure, and relevant enough to strengthen your provisional assignment. Then keep it when excitement fades. On an unremarkable day, replace disappointment with this declaration. I will not measure this day only by what arrived. I will measure it by what I faithfully developed. That is grounded agency. You may not control recognition, timing, or opportunity, but you can govern preparation. Yet discipline must remain accountable to purpose. Routine without direction becomes mere control. Consistency without service becomes self-absorption. Every practice must stay connected to the people you intend to serve and the responsibility you are preparing to meet. The goal is not simply to become more controlled, it is to become more trustworthy, because the capacity being formed in private is eventually meant to carry weight. That weight changes the meaning of opportunity. Many people imagine the next season as rescue, Discomfort will end, doubters will be answered, attention will return, and loneliness will finally lose its voice. But if opportunity is required to repair your identity, you will enter responsibility needing from it what responsibility cannot safely provide. Access is not readiness. A platform is not stewardship. Influence is not freedom from accountability. Arrival is not proof of endurance. Opportunity may invite you into a room, but assignment determines what you must carry once you enter it. This is where fantasy becomes dangerous. You imagine that greater visibility will silence insecurity, that increased authority will correct disorder, or that meaningful work will purify confused motives. Yet enlargement does not automatically repair what remains unresolved. It can expose it. Praise can awaken dependence on approval. Pressure can reveal neglected habits. Influence can magnify the need to make every outcome confirm your worth. What was manageable in private may become costly when other people depend upon your judgment. Desire asks for more to be poured in. Preparation strengthens what must receive, hold, and distribute what is given. A weak container does not become strong because the contents are valuable. Greater volume only increases the demand upon its structure. In the same way, responsibility does not reduce the need for character, it intensifies it. Readiness, then, is not excitement about being chosen. It is stable identity that does not collapse when attention changes. It is honest self-knowledge that recognizes weakness without hiding it. It is clear direction that can distinguish service from vanity. It is repeatable discipline that continues after novelty disappears. And it is relational responsibility, the ability to remain truthful, correctable, connected, and considerate of those affected by your decisions. Ask the weight-bearing questions. Can I remain truthful when praised? Can I continue when the work becomes repetitive? Can I receive correction without protecting an image? Can I serve without making every result a judgment on my worth? Can I carry authority without needing control? Can I remain available to people without allowing their demands to consume my identity? These questions matter because an assignment rarely belongs to you alone. Your reliability may affect colleagues who must work beside you, family members who live with your choices, a community that trusts your contribution, clients who depend upon your care, or people whose names you may never know. Responsibility widens the consequences of private habits. What you refuse to govern in solitude may eventually place weight upon someone else. This does not mean delay guarantees a larger opportunity later. No honest preparation can promise a particular opening, timeline, or outcome. But increased capacity is never meaningless merely because your preferred door remains closed. Integrity can be used where you are. Clear judgment can serve present relationships. Discipline can strengthen current responsibilities. Maturity retains value before recognition, during recognition, and after recognition changes. So, when nothing visible appears to be advancing, do not conclude that nothing meaningful can be built. You can become steadier, clearer, more disciplined, more connected, and more useful. That is, progress no audience has to authorize. Now the principle must become practice. It is not enough to feel prepared tonight. The question is what identity, vision, discipline, connection, and service will require from you tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning begins with a rule. Purposeful solitude cannot depend upon mood, because unstructured space does not remain empty for long. Fear will interpret it, distraction will fill it. Avoidance will hide inside it. A reframe becomes durable only when it governs your schedule. First, pause. Protect a brief period before messages, comparison, and other people's demands begin interpreting the day for you. Do not begin by asking what everyone wants. Begin by becoming present to what is true. Use the quiet before the noise uses you. Second, guard. Decide which voices deserve repeated access to your attention. Guarding is not hostility toward people. It is responsible selection. Every opinion should not become instruction. Every update should not become urgency. Every demand should not become duty. Choose inputs that strengthen truth, wisdom, responsibility, and peace. Third, write. Record one truth about your identity, one honest observation about your present condition, one priority for the day, and one question that remains unresolved. Writing slows vague emotion into language you can examine. It allows you to notice patterns, without allowing those patterns to rule unnamed. Fourth, train. Schedule a finite block for the skill, habit, or responsibility most closely connected to your provisional assignment statement. Make the block bounded and specific. Do not attempt dramatic reinvention. 30 focus minutes repeated faithfully can form more capacity than one exhausting burst followed by abandonment. Consistency trains what intensity merely announces. Fifth, connect. Build at least one healthy point of contact into your day. Let someone trustworthy know how you are actually doing. Listen as well as speak. Receive correction where it is needed. Ask for help when the season exceeds what should be carried alone. Solitude protected by connection becomes preparation. Solitude protected from connection can become concealment. Sixth, serve. Use some present capacity for a concrete contribution now. Encourage, assist, solve, teach, create, or care within the responsibilities already near you. Preparation that never benefits another person can become endless self-examination. Service keeps development facing outward. The recurring audience concerns represented by E11, fear, waiting, worry, stress, anxiety, burden, peace, calm, and rest, do not prove that one routine resolves every struggle. They do show why replacement practices matter. When anxiety begins interpreting the silence, ask, what is this quiet giving me room to notice, practice, repair, or serve today? Keep the rules simple enough to repeat. At the end of 7 days, review it. What became clearer? What became stronger? Where did I withdraw? Who needs to hear from me? Then adjust the practice without abandoning its purpose. This rule gives quiet a constructive direction, but no rule should become permission for permanent retreat. The next act of maturity is recognizing when preparation must widen into participation. Preparation can become another form of fear. You can keep studying because action might expose weakness. You can keep refining because contribution might invite correction. You can keep waiting because participation requires vulnerability. What began as responsible development can become a respectable excuse for never returning. A workshop and a hiding place may both be private, but they are not governed by the same purpose. A hiding place protects you from being seen. A workshop prepares something to be used beyond its walls. If nothing you develop is ever permitted to meet relationship, responsibility, or real need, preparation has stopped serving courage and started protecting avoidance. Look for the signals of emerging readiness. Your motives are clearer. Your next step can be named. You are willing to be accountable again. You have practiced a capacity instead of merely imagining one. And there is an available way to contribute. These signals do not announce perfection. They indicate that what was formed in private is ready for responsible use. So scale your return. Do not make one step carry the weight of your entire future. Send the message. Accept the conversation. Submit the work. Join the community. Ask for guidance. Take the next responsible action available to you. Courage often enters quietly. It does not always make a dramatic appearance. Sometimes it simply stops postponing what clarity has already made necessary. Readiness does not mean fear has disappeared. It does not mean grief has completed every process or uncertainty has answered every question. It means fear, grief, and uncertainty no longer make every decision. You can feel caution without surrendering direction. You can honor pain without giving it permanent authority. You can move without pretending to possess perfect certainty. Test the step with 3 questions. Is it aligned with my clarified direction? Can my present capacity support it? Does it move me toward responsible relationship and service? If the answer is yes, stop demanding emotional certainty as the price of obedience to what you already understand. Some quiet seasons do not end suddenly. Participation may increase while solitude remains part of your rhythm. You can preserve reflection without preserving withdrawal. You can protect attention without rejecting access. You can remain inwardly grounded while becoming outwardly available. Isolation resists accountable return. Purposeful solitude strengthens your ability to return. Preparation fulfills its purpose when private growth becomes public responsibility. Choose one act of re-entry and let what you have built begin to serve. Now gather what this quiet has taught you. Silence can become attention. Exposure can become self-knowledge. Self-knowledge can clarify vision. Vision can select discipline. Discipline can develop capacity. Capacity can mature into responsibility. This is how solitude remains constructive. It moves inward for truth, then outward for service. You may be alone in this chapter without being abandoned in your purpose. Reduced recognition does not erase identity. Delayed opportunity does not prevent present preparation. Loneliness may still be real, but it does not possess the authority to define what this season means. Do not demand a promised relationship, position, or opening as proof that your practice matters. No honest discipline can guarantee a preferred outcome, but intentional practice can make this chapter more truthful, more structured, and more usable. You can know yourself more deeply, govern yourself more faithfully, remain connected more honestly, and offer what you already carry more responsibly. For the next 7 days, make a commitment. Protect a period of quiet. Complete the daily question. What is this season asking me to notice, strengthen, repair, or serve? Train one capacity connected to your clarified direction. Maintain one healthy connection where truth can be spoken and received. Perform one concrete act of service with what is presently available. Then name 2 things. Name one private habit you will strengthen when nobody is supervising you. Name one responsible step of re-entry you will take before the 7 days are complete. One develops the person. The other makes that development available. You are not merely waiting for another assignment to appear. You are becoming someone able to carry responsibility without losing identity, connection, or integrity. Let the quiet produce readiness, not desperation. Availability, not dependence. Service, not self-erasure. And when fear attempts to pronounce abandonment over silence, answer it clearly. I will not call myself abandoned merely because this season is quiet. I will use the quiet to become clear, disciplined, connected, and ready to serve.